Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. Yeah, the Geek Room is currently compromised, so for the final few episodes, I'm going to be reviewing the films from the Hall of Justice. I'm friends with Superman and sort of with Batman, so that's why I'm here. And also, I had a glow up. What's it to you? Moving on. As we all know, Superman is one of DC's most iconic heroes, being the single most important character created for them. But not exactly their most iconic. That would be the Dark Knight. Sorry, Supes. However, there was a time when Supes tanked in popularity, and the way they brought him back to popularity was by killing him off. That's right. The Death of Superman was a 5-issue miniseries published in 1992. The comic introduced the superpowered individual known as Doomsday. In a brutal battle, Doomsday manages to kill the Man of Steel, which left a huge impact on everyone who grew fond of the character, and especially the characters that surrounded Superman, such as the Justice League and Lois Lane. As a matter of fact, the change was almost permanent until Reign of the Superman got published in 1993 and brought Superman back with a sick mullet and black costume. Now, I really like this concept because if you incorporate it right, you can grow attached to Superman and feel the right emotions when he's killed off. However, when this story is adapted, it is stupidly mishandled. First, there was the animated film called Superman Doomsday, which was the first of the DC Universe animated original movies to be released, which had a very good first half, but a watered-down second half. The next adaptation would come in the form of that god-awful scene in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, where in his second appearance, mind you, Superman is killed by Doomsday. If you want to know more about my thoughts on that version, go ahead and check out my review on BVS. Hashtag shameless plug. Yeah, the first two times Warner Brothers tried to adapt this story, it failed miserably. But they had one more shot at it, as in 2018, the DC AMU had its Superman go through this arc, and in 2019 swiftly concluded it as well. But how are these films on the whole? Well, you're going to find out today, as we are taking a look at the two-parter Superman story, The Death of Superman and Reign of the Supermen. Superman, voiced again by Jerry O'Connell, is struggling to keep his life as a hero working alongside the Justice League and his life as Clark Kent together. He drifts further apart from Lois Lane, voiced by O'Connell's real-life wife Rebecca Romijn, and he's an overall mess. Things get crazier when an alien creature dubbed Doomsday lands on Earth and rampages across Metropolis. Now, Superman must engage in one last battle to save the city that he loves. 6 months after Superman's death, Earth's citizens and the Man of Steel's heroic contemporaries are dealing with a world without the Man of Steel. But in the aftermath of Superman's death, the subsequent disappearance of his body leads to a new misery. Is Superman still alive? The question is further complicated when 4 new superpowered individuals, Steel, voiced by Cress Williams, aka Black Lightning, Cyborg Superman, also voiced by Jerry O'Connell, Superboy, voiced by Cameron Gotham's Joker Monahan, and the Eradicator, voiced by Charles Halford, emerge to proclaim themselves as the ultimate hero. In the end, only one will be able to proclaim himself the world's true Superman. Now, both of these movies are some of the best films in this entire continuity. If it weren't for Flashpoint Paradox or Apocalypse War or Batman vs. Robin, these would be the best films in the continuity by far. I prefer the first half better, but I don't mind the direction Reign of the Supermen took. These movies are what the DCEU Superman should have had, which meant BVS wouldn't have existed, but that's a story for another time. Are they the best of the DC animated films out there? No, they aren't. There are better films and will be better films compared to this. Is this duo still good? Abso-freaking-lutely. How so? Well, let's find out. Let's start with the titular lead. I thought long and hard about this, but this is my favorite version of Superman ever. Yeah, I went there. While I will forever love Christopher Reeve, Tim Daly, George Newbern, and so on and so forth, Jerry O'Connell is my favorite actor who portrays the Man of Steel. He gives Superman this great feeling of humanity, something that the DCEU Superman lacked drastically. He cares about the people he's closest to, and he cares about the ones that surround him. When he sacrificed himself to Doomsday in the first part, I felt a lot of significant emotion. Everything that led up to it made me dread the inevitable outcome, and that is the highest praise I can give this version of Superman. Oh yeah, and his two new suits, the Resurrection and Rebirth suits, are perfect. Lois Lane is great for two reasons. The first reason is that she does care about Clark as she's worked alongside him for so long. So she really got to know him before he stopped Doomsday. And second is that you feel the connection because Rebecca Romijn and Jerry O'Connell were actually married in real life, which makes it all the more perfect. Yes, there is a reference to Superman the movie in the first part, which leads me to believe that a version of that story took place in this timeline. That is what I believe. Fight me. There are some other significant Superman supporting cast members here. Jimmy Olsen, Bibba Bobowski, Dan Turpin, Maggie Sawyer, Perry White, the Kents, and Bruno Mannheim making fun cameos. God, I really wish we saw more of the Superman side of the universe because I love these characters in Superman the Animated Series. But I can't complain too much. As far as the individual Supermen go, they are very fun to be around. Superboy is very charismatic but very cocky at the same time. This is the 90s version of Superboy after all. It was fun to see him in action whenever he was on screen. Steel was fun to watch, and I loved the armor having references to Superman with the logo and the cape. But he still remains himself here. He's not Shaq with an awful costume this time around. That's the closest thing you'll ever get to me reviewing the Steel movie. Enjoy it while it lasts because that's all you're going to get. The Eradicator looks a lot like Superman, but what's interesting about him is that he's a computer that was set to look after baby Kal-El. Yeah, that's a great little story beat, and I like. Yes, the nanny joke does make me laugh. See, I'm not too grim. I like some jokes. As far as the Justice League goes, they do get the Shaft and Reign of the Supermen, but that's not too bad because that was centered on the return of the Man of Steel plotline. They're much better in the first movie where they are battling Doomsday, buying Superman time to come in and finish the job. Speaking of which, let's talk about Doomsday. I fear this Doomsday more than the 2016 crappy live-action version. He was menacing, powerful, and downright scary whenever the plot needed him to be. Also, this proves that you can have a comic-accurate design and be more adult. I don't know what they were thinking when they designed Doomsday for the live-action movie. Hopefully in the future we'll get something better, but not likely. The other three villains I want to talk about are also really fun. Lex Luthor has a very cold and calculating voice thanks to Rainn Wilson from The Office, and he became a lot more interesting this time around. Cyborg Superman's twisted view on the world was frightening and also quite understandable. Darkseid is here to set up future sequel. Then that's all I have to say about it. Overall, this cast is pretty fantastic, and I would love to see a big ensemble cast for a live action movie on this scale. I know James can make that happen, so go ahead. Make my millennium. Moving on, the animation is still top notch and looks great. The movies looked best in their final battles, where their colors and brutality really sink in. Speaking of brutality, we have some pullback here, but whenever the movie calls for it, there are very violent moments. The Justice League getting their bones broken by Doomsday, Superman's battle with Doomsday with that awesome neck snap move, and the final battle of Reign are some of the best fights in the franchise, hands down, and it's all because of how violent they were. So yeah, these two are my favorite Superman films currently. They know what they are and they take full advantage of it. If you have the time and are ready for a few tears, check these two out, as you will be missing out if you don't. For that, these two together get a 10 out of 10. Well, I've got those two out of the way. If you'd like to let me know what you thought of this movie in the comment section below, and tune in next week when I take a look at the final Batman film of the franchise, Batman Hush. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some work with the Justice League to do, so with that said, my name is Mr. CCS, this is Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. See you next week.